A rising star in Congress, the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Gottheimer.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 1164, the bipartisan Taylor Force Act. I want to thank Chairman Royce and my friend and colleague and a real leader for our party and for this issue, Ranking Member Eliot Engel, for all of their hard work and leadership to bring this legislation to the floor. All of us in Congress could learn from and emulate friendship and bipartisan working relationship, especially when it comes to our foreign policy and support for our vital ally Israel and in our fight against terror around the world. I commend the gentleman from Colorado, Representative Lamborn, for introducing this important legislation, and I am proud that Ranking Member Engel and I were the very first Democrats in the House to co-sponsor this measure. Mr. Speaker, I serve on the House Financial Services Subcommittee on Terrorism and Illicit Finance, where day in and day out, my colleagues and I track the flow of money to terrorist groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and ISIS through illicit financial networks. But for years, the Palestinian Authority has shamelessly engaged in an equally heinous practice out in the open, the awarding of official payments to terrorists it inspires to go out and kill innocent civilians, including American citizens like U.S. Army veteran Taylor Force. Israeli citizens live under the constant threats of stabbing, suicide bombings, and vicious terrorist attacks. Palestinian leaders, including President Abbas, have not just refused to call for an end to these attacks or to speak out against those who promote hate and violence. Rather, they celebrate, defend, and promote terrorism through an elaborate system whereby the Palestinian Authority literally, quote, pays to slay. That is because for decades, the PLO and the PA have provided payments in some form of another to terrorists and their families, as well as various other awards and titles and honorifics. But the practice is especially heinous because today it is enshrined into Palestinian law that deadlier attacks of terrorism will be rewarded with even more money. I know because I've read the laws and seen the accompanying payment charts. There's literally a payment schedule for the severity, based on the severity of the terrorist attack. These encourage more severe and gratuitous violence and terrorist activity. For instance, the terrorist who slayed 3 people in 2015, including 18-year-old American citizen Ezra Schwartz, who was his gap year in Israel and planned to attend business school at Rutgers University in New Jersey, who would be rewarded by the PA with a monthly salary, the terrorist, a monthly salary of well more than $3,000. In sum, these payments total hundreds of millions of dollars that the PA redirects from its own budget to pay off the murderers of Jews, Israelis, and foreigners. The Taylor Force Act will eliminate U.S. foreign aid to the West Bank and Gaza that directly benefits the Palestinian Authority until the Secretary of State can guarantee that they have ended these payments. This legislation is carefully targeted to achieve maximum leverage over the PA to end the funding of terror. Mr. Speaker, this legislation stands in stark contrast to partisan, one-sided, and offensive and harmful bill recently introduced in Congress under the guise of promoting human rights that would cut aid to Israel for cracking down on terrorism. Israel has the right and obligation to defend itself and its civilians, who have been the targeted victims of brutal attacks and murders while going about their daily lives. And the United States ought to stand with them by condemning Palestinian incitement. Members of both parties have been working together to do just that. Since fiscal year 2015, Congress has reduced, dollar for dollar, the amount of money that the PA and PLO pay to terrorists and their families from the economic support fund aid the U.S. provides. While this has resulted in the reduction of our foreign aid, it has not yet brought an end to this practice. In May, I joined Representative Claudia Tenney, Tom Suozzi, and 33 of our colleagues to demand that the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, address these terror payments directly with Palestinian President Abbas during his visit to Washington, D.C. It has been suggested that the PA may be more receptive to international pressure, and I'm glad that this bill urges the Secretary of State and the U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations to highlight this issue with the international community to condemn these horrific acts of violence. But that is simply not enough. The United States must use every tool at their disposal to counter violence and terrorism. The PLO and the PA may well continue down the path of more hatred, violence, and terror without regard for the damage inflicted or for the role in diminishing the prospects for peace. But so long as they pay citizens to murder civilians, then they will do so without benefiting from the support of the United States taxpayer. There's no question that should be asked about that. Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in standing in solidarity with the families of the victims of terror to bring an end to this appalling system of paid violence. I urge support for this bill, and I yield back. Thank you.